Today I got with me Alan Funston. He owns a company, a very unique company called Sentient Future Consulting. I had met him, it would have been now, probably close to a year ago now.
Sounds about right, Steve.
Yeah, and I got to say, from the first phone call that I had with you, I was blown away. I think that was still to this day one of the most enlightening conversations that I have ever had. And that's what
Thank
I think I'm still connected with you on that, still to this day. So tell us what you do, man. How are you sitting in that seat today?
Yeah, a bit of background. So I'm a professional engineer here in Canada, management consultant. I've done that for well over a decade. And the last 3 or 4 years, I've actually transitioned to being a full-time dad to my twins and my littlest one. So 3 little kids at home. But grew my consulting business, Sentient Future Consulting, on the back of some of my interests and my passions and how it is that I want to care about other people and serve other people. And the long and the short of it is that I've developed a way, using some of my prior professional experience, to maximize how fulfilled people feel, but in a structured and measurable way. Eliminating regret, eliminating wasted time in our lives, but again, in a structured, measurable way, in an actionable way, which I hadn't seen done before. And I'm really at the core of all this, these ideas is that you are sentient. How it is that you and I see this world is, it's subjective. We value this world subjectively. It's the relationships, it's how you feel that truly matters. How fulfilled you feel is your end game. And so really I'm tackling the problem head on. And what's interesting is that, individually, you can imagine how important or how powerful that is, but organizationally as well, when we pull that together and we look at how different stakeholders are, feel and what it is that they value, and we map that and we make decisions about the organization and its direction on the basis of what is in the best interest of everybody involved and affected, it's no surprise that the organization thrives. But it's just handling the human element first, and that's really where I come in. I'm trying to bridge a variety of different disciplines and ideas, and leveraging best practices from a few different areas, but then finding a few new ones, again, that are really just at the intersection of fields that I had not yet seen explored thoroughly.
And so it's interesting. Would you go into a company and there's 4 stakeholders in the company, and you're going to take each one of them away from each other and kind of work with them one-on-one and then do an overall plan for the business moving forward? Or how does that come together?
Yeah, well, precisely that. These one-on-one conversations really help define and weight what it is that someone values. And then that gets transformed ultimately into decision criteria. We're transforming something qualitative into something quantitative. And although that sounds like a bit of a paradox, it is possible and it can be done in an elegant way. It's just differently than I think we might have thought was possible. And so once we do that, though, and you roll those values up into sort of an organizational set, when you combine those across different stakeholders, you get a very good idea for the directions the organization could go that will be intrinsically motivating to the people involved, that will pull people towards that direction, as opposed to one person picking a direction and trying to pull everybody else along with it, with varying levels of success. But it's far easier to move fast if you're all after the same thing, or if you know what each other is after and you kind of devise a plan to make sure that everybody is able to be and act and serve in the way that they're interested in, that they're excellent.
And so now, in today's day and age, how has the transition gone for you? Because you must see a big difference in between the way that we think as humans, let alone business owners, with the stressors that they got.
Well, I think we're seeing a lot of symptoms of underlying problems, right? We're seeing mental health issues, right? In a variety of spaces. We're seeing substance abuse, right? We're seeing suicide rates. We're seeing, obviously the pandemic. We're seeing economic disparity. We're seeing climate change. There are so many things that we face as a society, and I mean that globally, that I don't think we're doing a good enough job of addressing collaboratively.
Mm-hmm.
it's incredible what one person's potential is. Never mind a bunch of people working together. And there are pockets of excellence, don't get me wrong, and there's hope. I have hope. But just the amount we can actually accomplish together is ridiculous. And I don't think people truly understand what that is or what that looks like or how to do it, and why that, serving others virtuously, serving others in ways that are good for them, comes back to you in very clear mathematical terms. Like, this is nothing paranormal or phenomenal. It's, it's pretty clear. And, serving other people, right, is really your individual long-term best strategy too, right? It's simultaneously beneficial for you and for other people. And it's, I think what people don't get is so much of life, most of life, 98% of situations, right, are, sorry, what's that?
Yeah, what is life?
Well, I think 98% of life consists of positive sum games, not zero sum games. You're better off when you collaborate. I think movies and sports and, books, everything where there's a clear winner and loser, I mean, that's dramatic, but it's rarely the case in reality. I think it gets too much hype.
Sure.
Honestly.
And so that goes to your, because if I understand correctly, you don't advertise on any social platforms. You're against it. You believe it's a waste of time. Like myself, I haven't watched a movie in probably 8 years. I haven't had TV in 2 years. There's an 80-inch TV sitting right there. Hasn't been on once, I don't think, since,
Yeah.
So what's your take on that and the importance of staying off of it?
So it's interesting. Like, so I don't have anything against social media. I honestly, I don't judge. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
Nor is it my goal to impart my values on anybody else. That's not it. My goal is to help you identify what it is that you value and then execute on that, right? In a way that you find fulfilling, in a way that you eliminate regret for yourself. But it's your standard of success, right? Your definition. For me, and personally, you're right. I don't advertise. And part of the reason is this. So my goal is to eliminate regret, right? This form of suffering that is preventable. And regret is when we make decisions and we spend our time in ways that are not in line with what it is that we value. Fulfillment is really the opposite, when our decisions and actions are in line with what it is that we value. I view a lot of the sort of digital marketing and advertising and the like. Again, nothing wrong with it for most people, but in my particular case, what it does is it kind of gets in front of people and it may or may not be relevant. It wastes other people's time, right? And it contributes to this attention economy issue that is, I think, a huge major modern driver of the form of suffering that is regret. So I can't be legitimately and genuinely trying to serve people and eliminate that problem while at the same time contributing to it. That would be hypocritical of me. And so that's personally why I grow organically, and my focus is strictly on serving people, to the best of my ability, and then growing via word of mouth and growing organically, which is already working, which is really reassuring. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with things. Again, zero judgment. Anybody can spend their time however it is they want. But I try to be in people's corner and ask, the questions that allow them to identify truly what that is. And then whatever it is, cool, good for you, but, that's your definition of success. You can ignore everybody else's.
Yeah, you really have. You've been a great ear, the times that we have connected. And, how did you, you keep mentioning on our calls that you've saved how many hours, and how do you figure that part out?
Right. So as of today, actually, I've saved 216.3 years.
Holy cow. How do you figure that out?
Worth of people's time. So when I finish my work with someone, I ask them a single question, and they don't have to answer it, and they don't have to answer it right away if they want to give it some thought. but these are the answers. This is the sum of the answers of the questions I guess I've asked people. And the question is this: over the course of your life, how much time do you expect to save for having defined, weighted, and applied what you value, to make regret-proof decisions, and to balance your time in a fulfilling way? This is the first thing I do with anyone in that sort of first consultation, right? It's going through that entire process of locking in on what success is to them and how it is they want to spend their time, and showing them how to act on that, make decisions with that. And it's a process they can use for the balance of their lives. And so when I ask them, what is the value in time of this conversation to you? They give me answers. And if you think about even saving a fraction of your day, right? Not because you don't enjoy those things, of course you do, but because you found what you enjoy even more, right? And that you've got such conviction around it, that adds up. Definitely. The impact is immense. And I just want people to move through this life and to finish their lives in ways that they still have smiles on their faces, that they did whatever they came to do, right? Whatever that looks like. Doesn't have to be grand, but so long as it's theirs.
I love it. How do you find that? How does one person find that? Because right now it's information overload in the world. It's access to free information left, right, and center. It seems like it, anyways. Yeah. So, how do you figure that out? How does one? Because I myself, I've been going 100 different directions, trying to do 9 different things, but now I feel like I've narrowed it down a couple. Big opportunities have arisen, and now I just got to stay focused. But it's so damn hard to stay focused right now.
Yeah, there are a lot of distractions out there, and we're never not going to be tempted by temptation, and the different things that other people would have you spend your time on. The only way to overcome that is to know yourself so well, to have such conviction around who you want to be, what it is you want to do, what you enjoy, who you want to serve, who you value, that in the moment, working towards that is more compelling. That's what wins in those situations. So it really comes from self-awareness, but you can't just have sort of this airy-fairy general idea.
Right.
It's got to be specific. And I think that's where it has been challenging so far in the solutions I've otherwise seen, is that it doesn't get specific enough.
Right.
But when it does, laser focus, you know exactly what you want to do, and you don't have to force yourself to do it. Discipline is wonderful, but ideally you don't need it, because those things naturally pull you towards them. Right. You want to do that rather than anything else. Right.
And so would you say just sitting there with pen and paper and a whiteboard and writing out, do you have any set examples you can tell folks watching?
Yeah. So here's how this works, right? So a lot of my clients talk to me about their careers, right? I mean, that's the natural question, although this is very much a more of a comprehensive structure, and it applies to anything and any decisions or any different activities you might have in your life. But when you define and you weight what it is that you value, effectively that becomes decision criteria. So there's this list of 12 fundamental behaviors, and I can share what those are. It's no big deal, but these fundamental behaviors, and we kind of identify which of those 12 themes consistently shows up in the things that you naturally enjoy. Then we go about weighting how much you care about each of those. In an interesting sort of thought exercise. Again, it doesn't take very long. It's just the nature of the question is very different. When you have that, though, it doesn't tell you where to go, right? People ask me, okay, Alan, now that you know me kind of well, what kind of career should I choose, right? I don't know all of the careers out there. It is changing daily, right? I can't tell you which direction to go. What I can do, though, is help you define your criteria and how it is to compare the options you know about, right? Then, as you do your research, as you become more aware of different options that are out there, different information that is out there, your values at the time would shift, but slowly, right?
Mhm.
At any one point in time, you can very quantitatively and clearly and peacefully assess or compare those options. One of those wins out, one of those maps to your values best, which means it's inherently fulfilling. It draws you towards it. And even if that's the choice or the option you would have intuitively chosen, you now know why you chose it. And so it is, you have more peace. You have more peace around those decisions. Even if, you would have chosen it all along, but wondered what the other paths would have given you. You're not plagued by those regrets or those thoughts anymore.
Yeah. I remember a time, this goes back about 5 years ago, where Jack Canfield ran me through a self-guided meditation, and he wrote The Chicken Soup for the Soul. And at the time, I had to, I'll cut the story kind of quicker here, but I had to go through a car, and inside the car there was a black box, and inside the black box, whatever item I saw first, I had to draw. And right away I drew a microphone.
Sure.
And so at that moment, I knew that I had to be doing this. This is a first, second, third time maybe doing this. I had to either be on stage doing something, or no matter what it was in life that I was doing, I had to be working towards that microphone.
Right.
And so to anyone listening, I mean, the earlier that you figure that out, subconsciously, I think, and maybe you disagree, but subconsciously you would you continually work towards that passion, right? Would you agree with that?
So I truly believe that when you identify what it is that you really enjoy, right? Mm-hmm. You are far more likely to work hard at that. And when you work hard at something, you develop mastery. When you develop mastery, you can charge what you want because you're creating significant, value, significantly more than it is that, you would ask for. Whereas, something else, other options might look great on paper, but if you're not likely to follow through with them because they're just not engaging enough for you to commit to long term, then as good as they look on paper, they just won't be realized, right?
How many people do you deal with? How many people do you deal with that just aren't happy because they're in a career that they just don't want? I mean, I remember doing that, right? Just working to collect a paycheck. Sure, it was nice, but not fulfilled at all, Yeah.
The vast majority. And it's not to say that everyone's unhappy about their jobs. Some are. And, as you get specific, there's always room for improvement, right? Yeah. So maybe they come to realize just how much they do enjoy it, right? As opposed to some of the other options that are out there. Or they see ways that they can make small tweaks, right? Even if it's already a great situation. So I feel like, none of us are perfect. None of us will ever be perfect, right? The goal is not perfect. The goal is better. When you kind of know yourself better, right, then you can make those tweaks, whether those are small or whether those are large. And it's really fulfilling to help people get to know themselves better, and frankly, get to know other people better, and have them open up to me, in a confidential setting and everything. I really enjoy kind of that diverse discussion and learning, about everybody's different paths, both past and future. So yeah, it's fulfilling to me. I mean, this is what I enjoy doing, so it kind of works well.
And what was your past? Where did you grow up, and kind of go back to that? And how did you get into doing what you're doing today? Because it's super unique. Every conversation I have is different. It's different. It's wild where you go with things.
I had a pretty good upbringing. I'm grateful for the opportunities I've had. I've coupled that with hard work, of course, and that's gotten me to a place where I am comfortable. But the story, I guess, behind why this mattered to me was in early 2018, I looked back on my life and estimated that 55,203 hours of my life so far, which was 6.3 years at the time, I was in my early 30s, that I had not scheduled it, that I had not planned for how I would spend it in line with my values. Now, I've scheduled my time significantly for a long period of time, but this was time I felt I couldn't get back. This was some sort of deficit, some sort of debt that I felt like I needed to repay. So think about starting with a deficit of negative 6.3 years of this wasted time, this time that I regretted. And that ate away at me as I thought to myself, well, what could I possibly do? Because I can't go back and I can't fix that and I can't get that time back. But there was a way to make up for it. And the way to make up for it was to create intentional time in other people's lives. If I could help save people time in their lives for what it is that they valued and for what they reported, right, through that question that I mentioned, then maybe I can start looking at that as chipping away at my own deficit, right, of making up for the time that I regretted. And so from the beginning of 2018 until I believe it was November 6th, 2018, so about 11 months or 10 months, I was able to chip away at that 6.3 year deficit and reach net zero. The significance of that was that I'd lived a fully intentional life, right? That I'd made up for my own regret. Then I set a second goal. That was my first. The second goal was, what if I could create a surplus? What if I could create a surplus of 80 years, right? And the significance of that was, well, that's roughly my life expectancy. If we look at time as our universal currency, it can buy anything. Then what if I could give the equivalent of my lifetime to other people in their lives for what it is that they value, eliminate that level of regret across different clients? Then I could say that I'd lived a fully given life.
Interesting.
To have given my lifetime to others, in many senses, literally. Now, I was floored that actually only took me about another year. December 21st, 2019, I crossed that threshold and had lived a fully given life. And so this is a weird situation that I found myself in. I had already given more time to other people from their perspective than I was expected to live.
Interesting.
In some senses, assuming I don't live past 80, and I hope I do, but assuming I don't, I had already created a net benefit to society. I'd left it better than I'd found it. But I was still here. And I could still do something. And so the question became, well, what's next? It's really weird. It's a weird feeling to live life feeling like you're already done. I'm done. I could die happy tomorrow knowing that I'd created a net benefit.
Where do you plan on taking it? And where's it going to go? Because you know what? I live my life like that. And I have for a long, long time, because I feel like I've paid my dues in this game. I am totally content if something happened, I fall off this window tonight, and like it wouldn't. I've lived a good life. I've done everything that I've wanted to do thus far.
Yeah,
and it is free.
It is. I mean, what I think it frees you up to do, what I think it frees me up to do is, I don't know if I was ever in it for me, but I don't have to be in it for me. I literally, the only thing I care about, period, is saving other people time. It's how I value my own life, right? It shows up in my personal relationships. It shows up in my professional relationships. If I've had an interaction and I haven't either saved somebody time objectively, right? Convert, like mathematically here, this, right? Or, some financial equivalent of that, or given them an experience, right? Or self-awareness or information that they would trade time for, then I wasted their time, and I view that as a failure on my part.
Sure.
But yeah, it's freeing in some senses, because you get to a point where the only thing you're interested in doing is serving. And what's really kind of an interesting part about that is that when you focus on serving other people and you actually do so well, you end up doing just fine for yourself, right?
We don't have to get into how much you charge or anything like that, but because you're at that point, do you value your time more, or do you value it less, or do you charge more now because you know what you've done? How do you go about that? Because I have a tough time with charging for my time and valuing what I'm worth.
Yeah, I mean, so I do a lot of pro bono work. I do a lot of volunteering. I do a lot of mentorship because I legitimately care. It's a long-term strategy as well, right? These future leaders within, let's say post-secondary education or situations in university and such, they're likely to be, the business people and the leaders and the managers of tomorrow, and cultivating those relationships, and that'll turn out well long term as well. But it's really just about investing in the next generation. I'm a dad now, and my kids are 4, 4, and 2. There's only a certain degree to which there's starting to understand certain things, of course, but like I want to make our future brighter than what it may seem like, if that makes sense. Now, just to wrap up, one piece of I guess what I've shared lately. So I do have one more goal, and it's not the goal that drives me, but like I said, the process. My goal, though, is by the time I leave this earth, that I will have saved people 12,021 years.
Wow.
And for perspective, that if I were to save someone 1 year every day, it would take me 33 years to do that. So this is something that is going to be hard to achieve, and it's going to take the rest of my life. The significance of it, though, is this. If anybody's been familiar, I'm not sure if anyone's heard of the Holocene calendar, but it's this idea of resetting our calendars, right? Instead of year zero being to do with the birth of Jesus Christ and any particular religious affiliation, that more globally and sort of cross-culturally, right? There is a period archaeologically that about 10,000 years prior to that is when we started to see the first evidence of human civilization, right? Of moving towards being nomads to being farmers, and setting up towns and villages and such. And so it was really that was kind of the beginning of civilization. My goal here is recognizing how challenging things have been for the vast majority of human history, right? Survival. It's rare, I expect, that most of our ancestors really got to live fulfilling lives. Most of it was hand to mouth and just surviving. So in some ways, I want to show gratitude to our shared ancestors for putting in all the hard work to the point where we are now. For goodness sakes, I mean, life is amazing what we can do now, and we can still get better, and we have to keep trying. But the intent there is to effectively to save enough time in present day lives to at least symbolically thank our shared ancestors for all of those 12,000 years of sort of human civilization that have been hard, that haven't necessarily been filled with fulfillment.
How can people get a hold of you?
So I'm on most social media platforms, using the handle Sentient Future. So whether it's Instagram or Facebook or SENTIENT, Future, FUTURE. My website is sentientfuture.earth, and there are links to get in touch with me there, email and the like. But yeah, it's one of those things where I now live to serve, and every opportunity I take it. So, I'm always looking to connect.
It's been an honor meeting you, for sure. Now, your typical, what would be your perfect ideal customer that because it's hard to wrap your head around it sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But
it is different.
What's your perfect match? Someone open-minded enough, someone that, is on its own path, that sort of thing.
So my perfect, I guess, client, as it were, isn't so much about demographics. It's not about a particular age or particular industry or particular gender or what have you. It's more about a particular psychographic, right? So it's how you think more than anything. It's, if you struggle with time priorities or decisions, if you regret your past, if you worry about your future, right? If you are genuinely curious about yourself and about other people, if you view life as a positive sum game, if you see the value in collaborating versus, competing, at least as a default behavior, then, we're going to get along extremely well. And I think you'll gravitate towards a lot of these ideas, and sort of be in a headspace where a lot of this makes sense, and you just then go execute, and you can achieve quite a bit in a very short period of time. I think it's for the people that view life strictly as a competitive endeavor, or those who aren't genuinely curious about other people, who don't intend to be empathetic, who aren't that curious about themselves, or who are in a good place. Like, for goodness sakes, right? If somebody's in a good place, I could not be happier for them, right? I would not want to waste their time if there wasn't something that I could do for them. But if people feel like they could be in a better place, and their mindsets, in that space, then I think we could do great things together.
I think, you were the one guy that first call we had. I don't know if you remember it. Do you remember it?
I remember all of our calls. Yeah, it was very unique. Love it.
Yeah, it was about 2 hours long, I bet you. I was scared to even take 5 minutes of your time, but it turned into a 2-hour call, and I remember, I think I was in good tears even that call.
Well, deep. I was floored by your backstory and all that you've been through and all that you've overcome, and found it inspirational, undoubtedly. And just, you are so good at being able to pick yourself up and not just survive, but go hit the next thing and excel at it, which I found mind-blowing. And so that degree of ambition and that degree of determination, like that, I found really impressive. And it was undoubtedly necessary, given some of the things that you faced. But that's when I kind of knew that I need to stay in touch with Steve. This guy's not only is he going places, but he has already gone places, right? A million times over. And so it's been a pleasure to get to know you better.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. But we'll save my story for another day, folks. So on that note, I guess we'll just wrap it up here. Thank you for joining, and for all that are watching. Until next time. You got anything, final last words there, Alan?
Just for people to really let this idea sink in, that how fulfilled you feel is your end game. That's all that matters. You have a different definition for it, and that's okay. Whatever definition you have for success for your life is yours. You and you alone get to set it. So I look forward to the opportunity to figuring out what that is with you, but it's yours. And please give yourself permission to execute on it.
I love it. Don't be shy to pick up the phone and call. He's a great man. Thanks, Alan.
Thanks very much, Steve. Have a great night.